This is the exact moment that I realized that this shock was blown. As a side note, you can obviously see my perfect bunny hop technique here. The squat, the pop, the tuck. Brilliant. Drop the intro and let's get to it. In all seriousness, this shock is, well, it's sucked down. So what I'm going to be doing is the small service on this, replacing all of the seals and getting it back up and running. Let's get to it. By now, you have your shock off the bike. So before you do anything, you've got to get that air out of the shock. You definitely do not want to be unscrewing the air can when it's loaded up to 300 psi. The next step is to clamp that shock into your bench vise. Then pull an old shop rag through the eye on the stanchion, or bodge together a bump stop if your shock already has a direct mounted link like mine. This will stop the air can from shooting off across the workshop if you have a little bit too much pressure built up inside the negative air chamber. Now, simply unscrew the air can. If it's as sucked down as mine, this could be a little difficult, hence the shop rag. Fortunately, I managed to just vent off this excess pressure through my auto sag valve. This made getting the can off a lot easier. Almost effortless, in fact. The gloves are a handy precaution against getting bits of your flesh wedged between an immovable object and a flying air can. Safety first, folks, which is also probably the first and only time you'll ever hear that on this channel. Then, just remove the air rag or the linkage, thanks Specialized, and then take off the air can. Now that you have everything stripped down, get it as clean as you can, both the stanchion as well as inside of the air can. You definitely do not want any dirt knocking about inside there. This is the standard FOX service pack. It comes with a few more O-rings than you're probably going to need, so spread them out a bit and you can see what's what. I'll put the part number in the description for you so you can make sure you get the right kit. On the stanchion, there's a rubber seal that's wedged between two plastic split rings. You're gonna need to remove these. It's not too difficult to do if not a bit finicky. Just be careful not to scratch any of the metal. Give everything a nice clean and get ready to replace the old parts with the new. Lube everything up as it goes on. Fox says you're able to use about half of the provided lube for this activity. You're only going to need around about 20 centiliters for the air can later on. Also, make sure you put the new split rings in so that they meet correctly. If they don't, things aren't really going to seal up right and you're going to have a bit of a problem. It's also quite obvious which way they need to go, so it's not too difficult to see. And of course, the rubber seal goes in between the two split rings. Next, just pop out the little rubber O-ring that seals up the thread, lube up the replacement, and pop that in. Once again, this is relatively straightforward. For the air can, you're going to want to pop out the dust wiper and then the rubber seals that sit between the two plastic rings. This time they're not split rings, so they're going to take a little bit more work to get out and quite some extra work to get in a little bit later on. To remove them, just use a little metal pick for the rubber seal and a pair of tweezers for the plastic rings. It doesn't really matter if you damage the old ones, they're going to get in the bin anyway. Then give everything another good wipe down. Once this is done, you just need to lube up the replacements and pop them in. I did the two plastic rings first, followed by the rubber seal which wedges in between them. This job is a little bit more of a mission than those on the stanchions, but with a little bit of patience and some mild fouled language, it can be pretty much accomplished with little need for either murder or suicide. The last step here is just to pop in the new dust seal, give everything one final dab of lube, and then you're ready to start putting things back together. The air can goes on pretty much the same way as it came off. It may need a little bit of a nudge to get it over the seals, then just slide it up the stanchion and put in the 20 centiliters of lube that Fox stipulates. Now, as you close up the air can, you'll be putting the air that's trapped in the negative air chamber under quite a bit of pressure. So it can be a little bit tricky to close. I was just able to vent this pressure through my auto sag valve, which made closing the air can quite a lot easier. If you're unable to do this, then at this stage what you would do is put your shock back onto your bike. Once it's back on, just lean down on the seat to compress the shock and close the air can. This will make things a hell of a lot easier. Be sure not to release the seat until you have a good few winds into the air can, as the thread is very fine and you do not want to be stripping it. Now, just reinflate your shock and you're done. I forgot the indicator. I forgot the indicator. It's okay, I'm not even going to bother with that. So that should be it. Serviced.